Subhadra, welcome to AIM on Air.
Thank you. Thank you, Tori. Very, very excited to be a part of this conversation.
Yeah, and I'm really excited for this conversation because I think you have such a diverse and interesting background. I mean, you've worked on everything from anti-money laundering to engineering to change management. So I think we have a lot of stuff to get into today. So I want to kick off the conversation with what you're currently doing at Shell. You lead a team of engineers and information professionals, which is just on the outset such an interesting dynamic and diverse bunch. And you focus on delivering IT solutions to business teams within Shell. So that definitely puts you at the crossroads between IT and business. And I think a lot of our members are either starting to do that or aspire to do that. So I want to hear what your advice is for information professionals who want to really bridge that divide between IT and business.
Yeah, I think very, very interesting question, right? And I think we are in very interesting times indeed, because I don't think any sector or any domain is confined to the domain itself. Everything is becoming very interlinked and cross-functional in today's world, and IT and information management with business is no different, right? But to the specific question, Tori, I think one of the things that I often feel is that people feel like they represent either IT or business, and they don't identify the purpose for which they are delivering the IT solutions. So, like any other solution or service, we deliver solutions for a customer, for a user, for a stakeholder, and it's very important to understand what that purpose is. So, my advice to any professional who is actually working at the confluence of IT and business is firstly to know the purpose. Why do we do what we do? Why do we need this solution? And what's the simplest way to get to the solution? I think IT professionals are techies by heart. So we love to solve problems and we love to solve complex problems. So my second word advice would be to keep it simple, right? If you don't need if you need don't need an algorithm and a rule works, then why not? Right? If you can create an automation, then why go with a probabilistic AI solution? So I think trying to keep it very, very simple and very, very understandable and relatable to the business is very important. In addition, I think it's also very important as IT professionals for us to be able to understand how our solutions are scalable in the business. Because oftentimes we end up choosing technologies, tools, infrastructure that is not compatible with where the business is going, right? We end up choosing information or data behind our solutions that are not compatible. So a classical example would be a marketing response model that you're trying to build to send campaigns to customers. And whatever data you choose behind that response models would typically need to have a regulatory alignment, right? So, for example, in a marketing response model, you cannot use demographics and certain geographic elements. So, unless you are, as a professional, aware and knowledgeable that these are information you cannot use, you will always end up using them because they give you the best statistical model response, right? But that's not what we are after. We need to provide solutions that are relevant, fit for purpose, and actually deployable. So those were probably my key pointers. I want to simplify this by saying that when I started my career as a data analytics professional, we were taught a very simple equation which said take a business problem, convert it into an analytical problem, create an analytical solution, and convert it back to a business solution. That's when we complete the chain.
Oh, I love that. That's such a good approach to it. And hearing you talk about it, I also wonder, are you employing business analysis skills? Because you talked a lot about requirements and identifying the purpose. So are those skill sets that you would recommend information professionals focus on?
Yes, indeed. Because I think information management, and this is where probably the information management professionals sit at the confluence of, the engineers or the IT versus the business. Because what they really do is they create the context around the information. They create the context around the data. So for understanding what a typical a typical solution looks like, and being able to demystify that problem a little bit from a business parlance to bringing it to a technology parlance. I do feel that business analysis is a key skill for information management professionals.
I love that you use the word context, so providing context for the information itself. I also want to talk about cultural context because you're in Bangalore, India, but you work with teams and have worked with global teams for your entire career. So, can you talk a little bit about the role that cultural context plays in data and information management and how you think about it and approach things?
Yeah, it's very interesting you ask that because one would assume that data and information are so binary that there wouldn't probably be a context or a color or a tonality to it, right? But that's where I find that that's really not true, like many other things in the world where we make assumptions of it being black or white. It's not really that. And I'll take a very simple example. Uh, uh, and it again goes back to our conversation on the business context because in the business the way we the way we use certain terms or certain phrases, for example, if you are trying to pay a monthly installment loan, in US it's known as a monthly payment. In India it's known as an equated monthly installment, EMI. In Asia, some parts of Asia, it's known as an equal payment plan. So one of my learnings was that, hey, even terms that are very, very simple and we kind of tend to reach out and create our entire analysis and our understanding around can have very different implications and different meanings for different groups of people. So essentially, cultures and the way business runs in different countries and different regions has a big impact on how we interpret that, right? The terms and conditions of credit card statements look very different, probably from India to US, and they'll have a lot of commonality, but there will be those finer nuances, right? And then, of course, there is the whole cultural element of just dealing with the gray and being black and white, right? So if you look at Asian cultures, they're probably a lot more comfortable with working through multiple, constructs which are not super clear, right? If you go to, let's say, a German culture or a Dutch culture, they'll probably look for a lot more clarity of information. So who is a data owner? Who is a data steward? What does the difference mean? I think that there is a fair amount of cultural context in how we respond to the same situation. And I see that quite a lot happening. Even though I have to admit that probably on the IT side, I have seen that happen lesser as compared to that being in the business, because business is like countries and geographies completely separate out the methods and the ways of working and the outreach, etc.
But okay, just to get a little technical for a moment, because I am curious with the example that you provided, where it's different names for these forms for
Yeah.
loans in the U.S. versus India versus parts of Asia. How do you normalize it then? Are you normalizing it with metadata? If you're categorizing like this form, which has a different name across all these different regions, how do you normalize it on the back end?
So I think it depends, Tori. So if the usually organizations grow inorganically, right? So they grow through acquisitions and divestments, and they kind of come together as different organizations, and that's when the normalizing gets tougher. Because imagine a situation where an Asian bank has merged with a European bank, and they have these different terms, and their databases are just coming together. And at the beginning phase, when they are still working inorganically and just coming together, and they haven't really come together as one unit, I feel like there will be a phase where these confusions will keep happening. But pretty much all organizations are going towards enterprise data warehouse or enterprise solutions for data storage, data maintenance, metadata management, and all of that will normalize it, because at the end of the day, it is going to be a definition and particular values associated with the definition and a logic, right? So all of that would be similar. It's just the name. So I think having that context a little bit, but also being curious about which business are you working for? What does the world look like in that part of the world? And I think that I'll give you a simple example. For a very long time, I used to work with Citibank's Thank You program, which is a reward loyalty program in Citi, which is a pretty famous program in the United States. And I was based out of India, so I didn't really know how it feels like, the campaigns that we were designing. And I was traveling to my office in Citi, and I they showed me all the flyers and the marketing campaigns that I had worked on. It just changed my whole context, right? It just changed the way I think about what I was doing, even on a day job, a few thousand miles away. So I think contextualization of where we live versus what we work for is very, very important. And that's where cultures kind of come in. It's not really a black and white as it sort of feels like.
And just as a side note, I just finished reading this bestseller called Unreasonable Hospitality, and it talks about how providing just the basic services is sort of like the black and white of the world, right? Like you as an information manager can deliver content to someone. But what you're describing is what unreasonable hospitality talks about is the color that you can add to service. Because you're really thinking about the context and how will this be received and how does someone feel when they're reading this and do they understand it? And do they understand where to get more information? So I love that. It's almost a more empathetic approach to information management. You're like going the next level. It's not just, can I deliver this service? It's how am I delivering it? It's really lovely.
Yeah, I think it's about probably internalization and externalization as well, right? And when I say this, what I talked about was more around externalization of what work we are doing. But when I talk about internalization, working in global organization gives us the ability to understand other regions, other cultures much better. And it needs to create that very general empathy, right? And that comes from even things like I have 3 time zones on my calendar in Outlook, because every time I'm setting up a meeting, I'm looking at the 3 time zones where my team is or where my colleagues are. And that also aligns with the holiday and the festival seasons, because a lot of what we deliver is around that, and there can be timelines around it. It may not always be relevant only for information management, but in a lot of different contexts, the kind of solutions you're providing. So while it may appear that, hey, why do we need to do it by this time? There may actually be a cultural context for the country you are delivering it to or the region you're delivering it to. So I think understanding that helps.
And I feel like our listeners should know that Subhadra is also giving us a hot tip that you can actually put international holidays, not just for your particular country, on your Outlook calendar, which is incredibly helpful. It's just baseline Microsoft to do that. So it's lovely if you can go into settings and options and add those holidays. Super useful for multinational teams. So I want to get down into the technical weeds a little bit here and talk about data. Because when we last talked, you told me that data is not inherently foundationally ready for AI. And so I'm kind of curious about where that sentiment comes from, and probably more importantly, what can organizations do to get their data foundationally ready for AI?
I love this question because I think this is exactly what everybody is talking about, right, across the world. And sometimes one feels that, are we really overthinking this? Or, let's understand the AI and data will somehow get ready for AI. And do we even need data to get ready for AI, right? We've heard different versions of it. But I think that the interesting thing about AI is that AI has broken a lot of barriers, in my opinion. I think we don't need data to look a certain way. really work on it, right? Which was always the case prior to, at least in the state of more probabilistic models. But I think that with AI, the front end, the back end, and the data has all kind of come together. So data absolutely needs to be ready. But the interesting thing about data is that data is always fit for purpose. So we always need to see the use case with which we are talking about data readiness. Everything about data is around a purpose, right? For example, for a particular company, an age of 99, an age of minus 99 may actually mean that we don't have an age, right? And we capture it as minus 99 because that's what the field allows you to capture a numeric value. For somebody, a layman looking at it would be like, hey, that's wrong data, right? But the business may actually have a meaning associated with that. So there are multiple examples like that, right? So we cannot say that an age minus 99 always means something is wrong. It just means that we may need to outlier that observation out from the analysis we are doing. The reason I'm talking in so specific is because I feel like we need to get specific when we are thinking about data. But at a very high level, the way I think about it, I think about data readiness in 3 C's, right? It's not really pulled from anywhere, so it's my own framework. But the 3 C's are contextuality, confidence, and control. So for me, data readiness begins from contextuality, which is metadata management, right? It's about what is that data, who is the owner, where is it coming from, where is it going, how does it look like in a schema, how is it set up, the labels, the names, the file types, etc., right? So it's basically the information about the data itself, right? So it's almost like the address, the phone number, the name of the data. The second piece is the confidence in the data. So what does that data actually bring? What is the value of that data, right? What are the volumes of that data? What do are those values relevant, not relevant? And I come from a statistics background, so every time I see a data, I just do a scatter plot, right? Every time I look at a data, I want to see, hey, what's the min, max, what's the average, what's the median? And like a very traditional person, I still look at a mean and a mode and a median separately, and that's the way I understand and assimilate data, right? I look at the distributions, and that's really the confidence in the data. So again, if I was somebody who was doing that in that age example, I would catch that minus 99 is a value and it doesn't make sense. Can I go back to the business and check what's the reason it's like this? Do we need to include it, exclude it, etc., right? And so that's really around the data observability. So, and that's the second C. The third C, in my opinion, is the control, which sounds kind of simple, but it's like really the governance framework. And this is really the trickiest part, right? Because this is not a black or white zone. This is about people, processes, policies, technology. And every organization, even every department within that, has a very, very different governance framework. And the larger the organizations tend to be, the more fragmented these frameworks tend to be. So when data moves from business to business, team to team, the governance framework sort of it traverses through multiple different types of. So yeah, that's where I those 3 C's, and it just helps me get some sanity around what I'm really looking for when we say data is ready for AI.
I love that framework, but what's really fascinating to me is um, I thought that the human element was going to come in on confidence, but the way you described it, how to have confidence in data, was very mathematical. As you said, you have a background
Yeah.
in statistics, so is the data doing what it's supposed to do? It's not an
Yes.
emotional thing. And I feel like these days we talk so much about, can you trust the data? Can you trust the data? Which trust is so subjective. So it's interesting to me that you're just sort of saying, what's the confidence range that we have in this particular set of data? It's really interesting.
Yeah, but I think if you think about it, like even simplistically, just to take a segue, and if you think about the word trust, and if you think about the trust equation, right, it's about credibility, reliability, and self-orientation, along with intimacy. So if you think about it, the credibility is the value of what the data is bringing in. The reliability is every single time it does that, and it does that consistently. So there is no variation, or there is no unacceptable variation. And the intimacy is really about how well you know the data. So I think
Yeah.
that can be humanized, but probably not in the way that people typically talk about it.
Yeah, and I feel like it's unreasonable sometimes to ask data management or information management professionals, can we trust this data? Because I don't know, can you? Like, we can tell you what was the data reliable? Has it consistently done X, Y, Z? Then yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So maybe now I ask the three questions like, do you have the context? Do you have the confidence? And do you have the control? So,
Yes. Yeah, I love that framework. So let's talk about data a little bit more because here at AIM, we use the phrase unstructured data quite a lot to explain information. And frankly, I use it because it usually gets a laugh when I describe unstructured data as hot garbage data. So, but you've mentioned that you think the term unstructured data is kind of counterproductive. So tell me a little bit about that perspective and what we can do to talk about types of data in a more productive way.
yeah, I hope I don't get into trouble with this, right? Because I'm trying to push back on something that's so common and has taken a ring to it. But I think that I think unstructured data used to be whatever couldn't be defined into a standard data format, or couldn't be stored as a regular database, couldn't be queried through a SQL query, right? That's how it probably all started. So transaction data, customer data, and the sales data, headcount data, all of that used to be structured data, and everything else was sort of this unstructured data. But I think as technology began evolving, as systems became smarter, unstructured data has taken a new leap by itself, right? Mobile phone has been a huge source of, I would say, expansion, which has exponentially expanded the availability of unstructured data, what we call as unstructured data. It's interesting. I was reading a Gartner report where they said that 40% of any organization's data is unstructured data. And that's huge, right? I think I'm quoting the number roughly right. But the reality is that I think unstructured data sort of creates a sense of mystery. Uh, I wouldn't probably go as far as calling it garbage, but I would probably say that it creates a sense of hey, I don't know what to do about it, right? So let me just not use it. It also creates a lack of ownership in many ways, right? Because it's to your point, it's probably a heap of stuff lying out there which nobody wants to own because nobody really wants to put a name to that. And that's where information management becomes really critical, right? Because we have all these different forms of data, and corporations in the past did not use videos and pictures and all of this as actively as they're doing today, right? So corporations itself have become like I would say, an explosion of data. And by classifying a certain type of data, which we now hear is about 40% of an organization's data, as, hey, I don't know what to do with it, we are actually sitting on a pile of lost opportunity, right? We're losing a lot of money on the table. We are paying money to store them, we are paying money to organize them, we are paying money to manage them and dispose them, but we are just not using them. So the reason I want to push back on the term itself is because to me data is again for a purpose, and data needs to be owned by somebody. I am a strong advocate of data democratization, so I do believe that if one team in a company or one department is having access to a data, that data should be accessible to other teams, considering policies and confidentiality and all of that in mind. But it shouldn't be that the organizations are creating multiple and duplicate data. But I do think that unstructured data needs to fit into that same bucket where organizations need to own them, right? If they are invoices, they need to be owned by finance. If they are, if they are videos, and if they are, sprinklers, and if they are different kinds of websites, they need to be owned by certain corporate relations teams or external relations teams. So all organizations need to have owners for the kind of data we are talking about, but we can't really just sort of classify one group of data and leave it to the information management team to again create that context around that data, but then you don't go into the other pillars of data readiness, right? So I feel that all the pillars of data readiness needs to be done regardless of structured or unstructured. But what I really find fascinating about AI, because I have worked in operations teams in the past, and we have really worked with a lot of survey data, right? Those days that were used to be the unstructured data, and I have actually sat through hundreds of surveys and read them, tried to find meaning out of them, created bigrams, trigrams, different kinds of NLP analysis to be able to find meaning out of it, right? And only then could we use it for any actual purpose. But with AI, we don't need to do that. Generative AI, optical recognition, all of these actually allows us to go into the data as they are and drive meaning out of it, right? So that to me is a very, very exciting space. And I feel like it has just removed the need for unstructured data to become structured and then being used. We can just use unstructured data as is, right? So that to me is a very big opening in the field of data.
So when you're just in the course of your day, what do you call unstructured data?
Well, we do call unstructured data as unstructured data. This is me saying that I don't want to call
It's
them
just that you don't like
unstructured
it.
data. Yeah, I mean, I would probably like for again for me like there are variations, right? Like you have a name, like you call a transaction data as a transaction data. So somebody buying an apple from a shop and you report that transaction, you don't call it a like a fruit data or a sales data. You actually call it a transaction data. You have a name for it. So I would like to probably coin a name for it, but that's probably for the next time.
Something different. I
Yeah,
see what
I
you
know.
mean, though, that the way we sometimes talk about it, I think you're right, that it's almost intentionally designed to create some fear and to make it seem like we're almost doing magic around this data. And admittedly, it can be really complex or inaccessible data. I mean, case in point, paper documents, which I know Shell
Yeah.
and many enterprises have so many paper documents. It is technically data, it's unstructured data in literally the truest sense, right? But it's still data.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And digitalization and AI combiningly can actually work magic from this data, right? Only if we
Yeah.
are able to use them in the mainstream, use them for the real purposes. And I think there can be many, many examples where these can these can tangibly reduce the cost of organizations where people are still having to sit and do manual entries, sit and have to copy from a paper and actually convert it digitally. So a lot of those things are getting automated, right? And last time we also talked about role shifting, and that's where kind of the
Yeah.
role shifting kind of comes in. So
So let's expand on that a little bit, because we know now from the last several years that AI and automation are really transforming the role of information professionals, mainly by automating these really routine manual tasks. So, as you look at the next couple of years playing out, how should information professionals position themselves? What skills should they be adopting right now to thrive in this AI era?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? I hear that a lot on my day job because I lead a team of information management professionals, and my standard belief after sort of interacting with all of them is that I don't think information management professionals should think of them any different from any other IT professional as regards the skill set. When I say this, I don't mean in the sense that they have to do exactly what a software engineer is doing, but I think the modernization of the skill set, the willingness to actually adapt to work differently than what we were doing in the past is going to be critical, because a lot of what we are doing, technology is evolving at such a rapid pace that the ability to classify, the ability to maintain, the ability to tag, label, a lot of this will get automated and is getting rapidly automated, right? Our ability to be able to sort of absorb that, identify, and play the human in the loop is going to be very, very important. So, AI is certainly a skill I recommend very strongly to my team as well. And when I say AI, I probably mean more on the generative AI as well as on the agentic AI, right? I think information management professionals deal with a lot of workflows. They deal with a lot of processes where an agent can actually do the more bulk, heavy lifting of their work, and they can be the human in the loop. And of course, generative AI, because the ability to prompt well, because information management is a fairly regulated area, and most organizations have a lot of standards and practices which they follow. So considering large organizations, they'll always have a plethora of documentation, etc., which then become the source of the work that the teams do. So how do we really use the best out of this through generative AI, through agentic AI? So AI definitely remains at the top. But I also think the concept of information itself, right? The concept of data sensitivity, data labeling, data classification, record management, I do feel that mm, all of that to me is really the business of information management, right? Whether they do information management for an energy industry or for a banking industry, a telecom industry, pretty much everywhere they need to understand the concept of information and for that particular organization. So, what is a sensitive information? What's a confidential information? All of these differ by regions, by organizations. So, just that concept. So, I always encourage the team to kind of have a mix of. So, my thinking around skills, Tori, is pretty much it's a triangle. I always think of it as a confluence. So one is the technical skill, which is around AI modernizing. Even I would say a fair amount of probably reporting, right? Just being able to be comfortable with visualization, reporting. It depends on what tools you want to use, depending on your organization, can be Alteryx, can be a Tableau, depending organization uses, but the ability to visualize a complex sort of a information space in a simple manner for the leadership to take enough notice and attention and act on it is an important skill, I feel, along with AI. That's on the technical side. The second pillar that I look at on that confluence is the domain, which is what I was mentioning around records management and just the classification, etc. And the third would be the soft skills, right? And I consider the soft skills as a key component of an information management professional's job, primarily because they're very different from, let's say, software engineers who get a requirement and they're coding on it and they deliver the code, right? For information management professionals, the delivery of their output is not just the fact that they have contextualized an information, but how they have influenced the business to consider it important enough to act on it, right? Where we are using more storage, where we are being less efficient, how can we really improve, right? And these are typically working with very, very senior people in organizations. So I think influencing skills, negotiation skills, just the ability to articulate what they are doing is, to me, a very important skill that I notice is required for IM professionals.
I love this sort of expansive definition you're giving because AI literacy has been sort of a hot topic the last couple months, but the way you're talking about it makes me feel like we should expand the definition of AI literacy to include data literacy, information literacy, and this is going to probably sound not as slick, but people literacy. If you don't know
Yes.
how to actually translate things for other people, to connect with other people, to understand their needs, it doesn't really matter how AI literate you are, it's going to fall flat.
Yeah, yeah. And everybody has a different level of literacy of AI. So how do we really appeal to the literacy level of another individual that we are trying to convince something?
Mhm.
And really begin from there, right? Because that's when we come to a common ground. So I think, I mean, it's no different than any other communication style. The only difference is that like AI has really, really leaped off, and it's probably taken a different shape and form than what may any of us thought. But I think that it's also not cool anymore to say that I don't understand this on AI. So I feel like a lot of people are not able to express that. So having like doing a self literacy on AI is very important, because I feel more and more people not feeling comfortable opening up and saying, hey, I don't know what to learn about AI. I don't know how to go about it. Right. So I think just like in organizations or in associations or in networks like yours, just sharing that, hey, this is how I learned about AI. This is how I did, can have a huge impact on bringing the community together without having to own up and say that, hey, I don't know how to do it.
And I think that that circles really nicely back to what you were saying earlier about how curiosity is something that you're looking for in your team, but also as a skill set for the future. So,
Yeah.
Subhadra, we covered a lot of ground today. Are there any other tidbits or tips that you want to share with our listeners and AIM members about ways they can position themselves for the future or things to be thinking about or learning about right now?
No, I think, to be honest, I think that the wonderful work that AIM is doing in the space, I feel like information management is a, I often tell my team that is a highly critical, much needed, and very little understood area. Right. So for me, I feel like a lot of what we all need to do who are working with information management professionals or as information management professionals is to really build awareness of the importance of it. The reality is you can actually have going back to my 3C framework, you can have the confidence and the control, but if you don't really have the context, your information is not reusable, right? You can use it once, you can do what you want with it once, but you can't build it into a product or a solution for future. And organizations thrive on sustainability. So I think that it is very important to make information sustainable, and that's what IIM does. And very honestly, I had very little knowledge about it until I started leading a group of information management professionals, and a fantastic team that has given me so much exposure to this world that I really feel I wish I knew about it more, and I would have called myself more holistic as a data professional with that. So
So, Subhadra, thank you for being on AIM on Air and your time today and sharing all these insights. It was a pleasure having you as a guest.
thank you. Take care, Tori.